Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. I've got the latest from FN in the micro compact territory. It's the FN Reflex. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Mantis Axe and Core belts. Link to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. And please consider supporting the channel on Player, formerly Utreon, where we can do some types of videos that are no longer allowed on YouTube. This particular one is not the optics ready. There is an optics ready variant of this available, and as of the moment I ordered this, it didn't exist anywhere. And then of course as soon as this arrived, I started seeing the optics ready out there. But they have a regular, like you see here, in an optics ready version of this. And that is a little unusual. Most of the manufacturers have just kind of gone to either not having an optics version at all or the optics ready in this particular category. Not a big difference. You'll pick the one you want, especially now that both are available. On the one I've got here, it has nice sights. They're a 3-dot sight. They're adjustable by drift at the rear, and they're dovetailed so they can be replaced. The front is a tritium with a ring around it to make it really easy to see. They're really nice, easy to see, clear sights. And the back are just white dots. The only quality issue we had with this gun at all actually focuses on the sights. Out of the box, the rear sight is off by about 1/2 millimeter to the left, and it kind of drove the groups a little bit to the left. You kind of see it a little bit. It's close enough you might have to measure it, which I did. But you can almost see a little bit. The gaps are different, depending on, I'll try to turn it as square to the camera. That's unusual for FN. I've had that happen with different guns. Usually you don't have things like that with the FN. It's going to be easy to fix. I'm just going to drift it. At the range, once I figured out what was going on, I adjusted for it. I try not to do gunsmithing at the range. Surprised. Other than that, the gun functioned flawlessly. The important parts, the mechanical parts, the things that you might have to send it back to have repaired, none of those gave any trouble whatsoever. And the sight's relatively easy to fix. It just kind of surprised me a little bit. It's got a nice textured grip. It does not have replaceable back straps. It's got kind of a solid texture at the front and rear, and then this sandy kind of texture on the middle of it, and there's a little thumb rest texture right there. None of this bites into you. It stays in your hand. It stays in your hand well. It's easy to hold on to, but it didn't abrade me at all while I was using it. So it's a well-defined texture. Single slot Picatinny rail, nice solid front serrations, nice rear serrations. And one thing I noticed on this is the slide is relatively light. It's not as light as some of the light rack ones that are out there, but a lot of these smaller guns end up with fairly heavy slides due to the fact that they've had to play games with the springs to make them function in a smaller package. This one doesn't have that. The slide's actually relatively easy to operate. It's 6.2 inches front to back. It's 4.29 inches, if I turn the magazine correctly, tall. So with the flush magazine that comes with it, it's kind of a 2 1/4 hand grip. Kind of comfortable in your hand with one exception. And I kind of don't know how this made it past their testing. The magazine base is square, and that's not unusual. The back of the grip is rounded, but if I turn it maybe this way, you can kind of see that the back of the magazine sticks out past the curvature. So the grip curves, and the back of the magazine, this edge right here, kind of sticks out. And it's going to be hard to show it on camera. Let me try a couple different angles. You can kind of pick up on it a little bit. It's not a whole lot. It's not like it sticks out 1/2 mile, but it sticks out just enough that when you squeeze it in your hand, and I'm kind of giving it a hard squeeze, you'll see where it presses right there. So with the flush magazine in it, this was actually a little bit uncomfortable to shoot because the edge of that magazine, it's not sharp necessarily, it just sticks out more than the grip because the grip begins to curve. So it was a little bit unpleasant. Now when I look at the extended mag, so the magazine I just took out is 11 rounds, the extended mag is 15. It's a full 3-finger grip. That extra length kind of puts that down below your hand or at a point in your hand where you're not really putting the force on it so it doesn't bite in. So I found this grip to be, or this magazine grip combination to be comfortable to hold, full 3-finger grip. Yeah, you can see where it's making marks when I squeeze it, but it didn't hurt at all in the range. That's something that's kind of interesting. I'm thinking if I put a whole grip on it, it might pull my hand far enough away from that edge. In other words, make the grip a little thicker than the base plate of the flush mag, kind of make that go away, or maybe round that mag off a little bit. but I did notice that right away at the range. Other than that, there were no behavior issues with it. It worked from round 1 to the last round, functioned well. The trigger's actually kind of nice. One of the things that you might look at this and think, this looks like all the other striker-fired micro compacts that are out there, and if I handed it to you at the range and you shot it, you'd say, yeah, it's the same as all the other striker-fired ones out there, except it's not striker-fired, it's internal hammer-fired. So it's an SAO hammer, but it behaves like a striker gun, so it's going to be consistent with what you're used to if you've been playing with Hellcats and others like it. It's got a bit of a hinge trigger, so that's part of its initial take-up. Then kind of just a little bit more take-up, so you're kind of coming off the take-up here, and that's also taking up the hinge. You're right on the wall, and it's a very short, right around a 5-pound crisp break. Resets almost all the way out, but the overall travel isn't that far. So you're a little bit of take up to kind of take up that wall and then that crisp break. It functioned quite well at the range. Of course, because it's an SAO, you have to cycle it. So if you don't have any double strike capability, not uncommon with this territory of guns. Most of them don't have that capability. There's only a couple that I'm aware of that do. The magazine catch is reversible. There is no ambi features as far as slide stop, slide release, or any of the controls. But it turns out to be a very comfortable, easy to operate gun. As far as that Hogue grip, they don't currently make one for it. But this gun is very similar in size to the Hellcat. It's got the same thickness, the 1-inch thickness that the Hellcat has. Ignore the Talon grip that's on the Hellcat. That adds a little bit of visible thickness. And the profiles of the grips are very similar. The FN Reflex is only a hair bigger than the Hellcat overall. So I'm thinking that the Hogue grip from the Hellcat will fit with possibly minor trimming overall. So I'm going to give that a try, and hopefully that'll mitigate this little issue here and make it a more pleasant gun to shoot. It was fairly easy to shoot well once I realized the sight was off, and I compensated for it. It's capable of pulling tight groups. I'll fix that sight fairly easily. With an MSRP of $5.99, it's a little bit on the pricier side of some of them that are out there, but it's not unreasonable, and it's actually a lower price than you're kind of used to with FNs. It's available in the FDE that you see here. It's also available in black. It comes with one of each of the magazines, the 11 round and the 15 round with the sleeve already installed. There's also a variant of this that comes with 10 round magazines for state compliance if you're in one of the states that requires it. One of the safety features I already showed you, so there's the inertial safety. And it's going to be hard to see, but right there, this little thing that you can kind of see is an over-travel stop. And it hits up against the frame so that you've got an over-travel stop at the top as opposed to the bottom. You can see it kind of disappears when I let go, but right there it's hitting the frame. It's an over-travel stop. And at the moment, of course, I didn't have it ready to fire, but if I make it ready to fire, you'll see it breaks long before that hits. So that over-travel stop is not going to prevent it from functioning correctly. As of the making of this video, spare mags are not available. I kind of wish manufacturers would do better about that. But when you put the gun on the market, have the magazines available. If somebody buys one of these and wants to actually start using it for carry and things like that, they're going to want additional magazines. Some manufacturers do a really good job of that, others don't. In this case, FN kind of missed the ball on having those magazines readily available and ready to go. Disassembly and maintenance on this is fairly easy. You lock it back, flip this lever up. It is a little bit stiff. I'm assuming it'll get a little bit lighter over time. And then release the slide stop, and then just pull it apart. There's no need to touch the trigger. And here you can see the internal hammer here at the back, as opposed to a striker hook. Nice robust rails front and rear, solid locking block, as you would expect from FN, very well constructed, very well machined. Interesting looking guide rod spring assembly. It's a dual, but it's not the classic ones you're used to like the Glocks where it's fatter at one end. It's just two springs coiled on top of each other. It is captive. It has a metal end, but it has a plastic guide rod inside of there. The 3.3-inch cold hammer forged barrel is very well machined. It's conventional rifling. And you can see that it's well done. There's no tool chatter or anything else. A little bit of a target crown at the end. Polished ramp and polished chamber. Didn't have any ammo sensitivity issues with this at all. Don't expect any. And the slide, of course, doesn't have the normal striker hook that you're used to seeing. It does have right there, right by my thumb, you can kind of see the arm there, and that's the piston style drop safety, so it's a drop safe weapon. But there's the firing pin that sticks out that the internal hammer hits. Again, well machined, well done inside, and for the most part, the finish on the inside of the slide is actually nice and consistent. The few places that it's not, it's where it started to wear from the barrel hitting it as it cycles. Overall, just kind of a well-constructed gun. Putting it back together is pretty easy. And so I just drop the barrel in, put the guide rod spring assembly back in, line it up. Make sure that that arm is still up, by the way. If while cleaning it you flip this down, you have to flip it back up. Flip the arm down, release it, and you're back in business. One of the things I also found kind of unusual about this is when I first took this apart, because of course I always clean and oil every gun before I take it to the range the first time, internally it was completely dry. There was no lubricant or protectant on it. Now there's no rust or corrosion. The finishes are really solid, so that didn't hurt anything. But it is definitely a point to ensure that when you pick up a gun, even from a well-known quality manufacturer like FN, take it home, inspect it, clean and oil it, make sure everything is in order before you take it to the range the first time. I know it's tempting to kind of want to jump right from the sales counter to the range, but that's never a good idea with any gun. And with this one being dry from the beginning, it may have performed poorly and made me inclined to believe it wasn't a good gun, when really it would have been a failure to actually maintain it properly. Overall, I would say it is a well-made gun. It's well done. It's imported by, it's actually assembled here in the United States by FN. Some of the parts come overseas. I don't know what parts, and some are made here, but the final assembly occurs in the United States. And FN's typically good quality. A couple things surprised me a little bit, and I do have to do something with that magazine biting into my hand for it to be truly useful. Now, your hand, if you don't have a meaty palm, then maybe you won't notice that. Depending on the size of your hand, it may put it someplace where it doesn't matter. So you'll try it at the range, but what I would recommend is, even if you're not firing it, just pick it up and give it a squeeze. And if it's going to bother you, you're going to know it, because you're going to feel it right there. And it did bother Hammer also when he was firing it. So it's going to be one of those things that might be an issue with this particular design unless you do something to mitigate it. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share. It's that on Facebook, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, Rumble, and of course on Player, where we can do videos that we can't do on YouTube. And have a great day. Thank you.